Hey, good afternoon. So this isn't really a kind of a massive update in terms of the overall situation, but it was just a couple of things that I kind of thought important enough to say, look, let's do another stream today and just fill in the blanks. So first things first, right? Going back to what I was explaining yesterday, there was a couple of things that I went through, and I went through this post. So again, I'll actually put this straight into now. I'll put this straight into the chat, right? So this particular post was what I was showing yesterday. And in this post, right, I talk about everything from, majority of retail traders having a memory like a fish, right? The price is currently, roughly 50% of the current all-time high, right? And yet the bull market's back and we're off to the moon and 250k is in sight and so on and so on. Just wanted to bring it back down to kind of to reality in terms of what tends to happen, and especially with things like this BlackRock ETF, the kind of hype surrounding this, who's in control, who's really in control, and how that looks, kind of on the charts, right? So I went through kind of step by step. I'm not going to cover this again, right? I've just went through this kind of step by step, right? If you haven't seen yesterday's stream, I'll put that in the link in a second as well, right? But in essence, I covered, why this post was really important for me in terms of the institutional involvement, right? Then from there, how I could call the calls, why these numbers were accurate, how I could see from a mile away. And this is probably the main part of what I wanted to cover again today, right? Was this COT data is kind of a clever bit, right? This is the bit that kind of emphasizes who's in control, right? Now, one of the things that I didn't actually cover yesterday, I had no intention of covering yesterday, but it kind of popped up in a chat that we've had over the last 24 hours. So going back to the chart, right? I mean, to start with, this is one of the things that I said, right? We're 4 days away, right, from 2 full years from the all-time high, right? This isn't something that happens overnight. It's not going to be, oh, we 15k today and then tomorrow we 250k, right? It doesn't work like that, right? The reality is, for us to obtain, anything above the current all-time high, right, and especially when we start talking, 100k, 250k, and beyond, right, it's what's going to give us that. What's going to have to happen for that to be achieved, right? And these are the kinds of things that I want you guys to think about longer term, right? Because trading these short-term moves is a fool's game, right? There's plenty of other ways to make easier money than to try to use this in terms of the short-term swings, right? This is open and susceptible to manipulation, spikes, pump and dumps, and low lull periods, right? So basically, what I'd done yesterday was I talked about how retail. I'm just going to go through this, right? I just talked about how retail ultimately are kind of suckered into this game kind of over and over again. There's this kind of facade, this kind of bravado, especially on kind of social media, where everybody's always right in the grand scheme of things. When the price goes down, it's, oh, let's hodl. When the price starts moving up, oh, we leverage long from the bottom. And I think the reality is, right, is majority of these people are not even trading, right? Majority of these people are kind of just using it for social influence, right? So in terms of where we are, right, I kind of went in a bit more detail in the chat yesterday, and what I covered in the video didn't really go into this level in terms of the next kind of phase, right? So the way that I'm reading this at the moment, right, I kind of feel that we've had this kind of major move down A, right? And this opens up for a bigger kind of running flat type move, right? I don't see A to B as an impulsive move, right? And as I've said kind of time and time again, I think if this is impulsive, crypto's in trouble, right? And that's part of the reason that I don't like it personally as an impulsive move, right? I've gone through, every aspect of this all the way through. I've explained, like I said, why I can see these numbers, how I can see these numbers, right? This goes back, 2021, where you could really see that institutional involvement. For me, this was just kind of icing on the cake, the fact that it was so obvious where we were coming back down to. And we had all these influencers calling for 100k back then, right? I talked about these levels, like I said, over and over and over again, right? I talked about how we can go down from there, back up 65k. We'd see buyers being trapped at 65k, and then we're going to see 40k again very quick, right? All of these things played out. They didn't play out by chance, right? They've played out because this is the institutional involvement with the bigger picture, right? So the one thing that I really wanted to share, and this is from, again, part of the conversation I was having this morning, right? This particular point, there's a couple of key things, right? One of the first US ETFs were launched. Look at the date, look at the time, look at the kind of event after, right? Then this morning, I got sent this. Well, this was actually shared with me on Twitter. I don't even know how to say this guy's name, but this guy obviously sent it to me on Twitter. And again, you've only got to zoom in and look, right? At every time one of these things were launched, one of these things that have kind of happened, one of these events, right? It tends to be at the top, right? So what I covered yesterday in terms of BlackRock, $3 trillion in terms of the whole ETF market and so on and so on. The assumption that BlackRock comes in and it's going to make, a lot of retail traders rich. BlackRock are not going to be bag holders for retail, right? It's as simple as that, right? So in the grand scheme of things, anybody that wants to come in and scream bullish nature, bullish intent, right? Bullish intentions right now, what I'm asking for in return as a favor, right, is back it up with some logic. Kind of give me your rationale as to why we're likely to see 100K before we see 30K again, before we see 25K again, before we see 20K again, right? The reason that I say things like nothing's changed. When I look at this chart, what's changed? We're still 50% of the current all-time high, below the all-time high, right? I've talked about this kind of time and time again. I've put this into posts. I've put this into streams, right? So the main thing for me, when I put all this together, right, it's understanding where we are bigger picture, right? This goes back now to February 2021, right? I talked about this key orange level, right? I talked about this kind of institutional Bitcoin, the transition, why I'm seeing this kind of key hidden level here, right? And like I said, this is 28th of February, 2021, right? This particular level, right, is almost critical, right? Now, let me just play this forward. This is always a small time frame, 4 hour, right? The price moves away from the level, the price comes back to the level, right? For me, this is pretty central, right? Which means this is oscillating around that level, perfectly, right? Then we start moving away from the level, right? We come back to the level, from below. We tag the level, we come back, we tag the level, we come through the level, we come back and retest the level, right? We then kind of play around this level for a while before we start shooting off, right? We then go away and we make the first, I think this was the first major all-time high, right? So from this level, like I said, we've come down, we've gone back, we've come down, we've gone back, right? Now, watch what happens now, right? This is obviously the last move we had down to the 15K, right? Now, look at what's happening in the current situation, right? Press play all the way to the end. This is where we are right now, right? Look at the character as we come up to the level. Anything suspicious about this, right? This is the type of thing that you need to look at, right? These are the types of things that you need to understand. Why are we doing this, right? What's there? What's happening there, right? This level for me is kind of key, right? Now, in the grand scheme of things, knowing what we've done, bigger picture, right? And again, I've talked about this a million times. I covered this in my book, right? In my book, what I'd done was I actually went and spent the time to actually put in advance what I was seeing, right? If I zoom in, this is chapter 20 in the book, right? If I zoom in, I look at where we were, we had obviously the seller's climax, right? We had the first kind of level of AR. I genuinely feel, right, we're potentially in this move, ST up to the first kind of sign of strength, right? Now, this is obviously one option. Now, we don't have to come deep for an STB, right? We don't even need a spring. We could have a schematic too, right? And we go kind of sideways at this point, right? So what I'm seeing at this stage, if you were to look at what I've posted, this is before May when the publish, date kind of come around, the 11th of May, right? This particular point, all we've done is we've come down and we've gone up, right? The reason that I like this and the reason I believe in this kind of so much, right, is every aspect of this post and everything that I've covered in detail in this post, right, it's kind of brought me to this in terms of a realization, right? You got a lot of retail screaming for long, right? You got a lot of retail going, oh, this is off to 100K, we're off to 250K, Bitcoin's going to hit $10 million per coin, with no logic or rationale, nothing supporting it, right? Nothing supporting it, right? It's the halving next year, and we've got BlackRock bringing $15 trillion. Well, go find a letter of intent, right? Go find an article, memorandum, in terms of an investment thesis from BlackRock explaining that they bring in $15 trillion into Bitcoin. But within that, within this contract, within this agreement, where does it state that BlackRock are going to be bag holders for retail, right? Come on, guys, a bit of common sense, right? Now, that's not to say that I'm not bullish, and it's not to say that I'm not a fan of Bitcoin, right? Obviously, I've been in Bitcoin an awful long time, right? Been very, very lucky, right? Touch wood, I've been very, very lucky with Bitcoin. I can't knock what Bitcoin's done for me, right? However, understanding what it's done and what it is likely to do, right, is kind of key to where we go and what we do next, right? So in this particular move, this is why I wanted to do this video today compared to what I covered yesterday, right? In the grand scheme of things, I feel we've had an ABC down, right? If you measure this ABC with the fibs, right, we got a nice little fib level here, right? It's almost a perfect retracement level, right? Now, to a lot of people, they see that as, well, that's the bottom's in and we're off. 1, 2, 3. As I've explained in my last several streams, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, and a 5, right, will put us literally back to a triple top, right? That's a shit move, right? A very shit move. I don't like that move whatsoever, right? I've covered why I think this was obviously the nested move. So a nested, 0, 1. If we had this one over here, further over, this was the 1. This was actually the 2. We had a 3. We had a 4, and potentially the 5. Right now, what that puts us in much larger 2. Right. I think stopping this being now this move down 1, 2. Right. The only issue that I have, right, and this is why I think we're not quite done yet, right? It doesn't mean that we have to come deep, right? As I've said time and time and time again, right? If this is a larger scale running flat, right, I can see a 3 move, which is the 0 to A, right? I could see a 3 move, and again, if you do the fibs, 0 A B, right, this C extension, right, which would equal the B, is perfect. It's a 0.618. Right? It's absolutely, you couldn't ask for a better retracement, right? So, seeing this kind of level, right? Let me show you a couple of things on this side. Right? Let me get rid of some of these brush strokes. Right? This is really, really interesting for me, right? This is why, like I said, this was deciding to do another stream today, right? If we come down from these lows, right, and we come up and we tag this level, right? Look at what we've done. To 768, right? Absolutely perfect. You couldn't ask for a better kind of retracement in terms of a 1-2 move, right? A 2 move is it's usually deep, right? It's usually deep because the accumulation phase takes a longer period of time, right? That time means that it's the big boys buying under the radar, not to spook retail into buying too much too soon, that the price runs away from the bigger players, right? These guys don't play games. These guys don't play games, when it comes to money, right? These guys make the games when it comes to money, right? People are talking about 100K by Christmas. No, it's these guys taking private jets on their bonuses by Christmas, right? COT data is not going to lie to you, right? It's there. Who's in control right now? Institutional. What are institutional players doing? Selling to retail. What are retail doing? Buying from institutional players, right? It's common sense, right? So we're in this kind of situation right now where I feel we've had an ABC down, right? I like this move up, right? We've got a 5 potential 3 followed by another 5, right? Which is a nice little move, right? If we were to see these moves in terms of what they represent, right? We've probably got some kind of, flat in this move, followed by a zigzag, right? Probably running by another type of move in the end, right? So seeing this extension down fib, perfect. Seeing this pullback fib, perfect, right? From a B to C right now, what we'd like to see is a 5-wave move down, right? It doesn't have to be deep, right? The whole kind of idea behind a running flat is that it only needs to be 61 to 100% of the AB move, right? Which is ultimately this one. Okay, so even if we were to take 100%, we come back down, right, to the same kind of 15k level at the push, right? If I was to measure this move in terms of a 618 move, right, we only need to come back down at this kind of level. Oh, wrong one. There. 23.3-ish, right? Which means that could complete something like this and give us an optimal entry for a long, right? Now, the reason I like this more than a bullish scenario at the moment is that if we were to class this, like I said earlier, as a 0, 1, 2, right? We can easily see a 3 up at 50, a 4 back at 40, and a 5 up around the 65k level again, right? Because you're going to have to see that. You probably see this, right? This is actually quite clever. You probably see this also as a parallel channel, right? What you'll probably see is if we have to take 1, 2, something like this, right? You'll end up with a channel that does something like that, right? That's the worst case scenario for any bullish intent, right? Look how sideways that is. That means we're likely to see 60k in 2026, 2027, realistically, right? That's one of the main reasons that I feel coming back down to grab the liquidity, taking this on as a 0 to 1 move, right, doesn't make any sense. Taking this on as an A followed by a B down for a C, right, means that when we have a 1, what we'd likely want to see from a 1, right, is a real big push to the upside. If we can clear, right, above 45k, 46k in that 1 move, when we come back down for a deep 2, right, probably back down to lower bands of this channel, right, this is where the liquidity is going to be sitting, right, when we come back down to this kind of level, that'll give us an extension that'll run probably beyond 100k, right? That's the value, right? That's the area. So going back to what I've published in the book, right, genuinely feel we've had this SC potential AR, right? We've probably come down for the ST, right? And I kind of feel that maybe this move up, right, above the AR is potentially this current move, right? Which means we still got to come down even with the best will in the world, right? I've covered obviously a lot of the different scenarios. I've covered, the second option and how the second option won't be the same. You've got obviously without the spring, the STB can obviously go again kind of sideways, right? So in essence, all you're doing, we put this on the chart. Let me get rid of some of these first, right? So get rid of this. The only difference being, right, and this is where, you just need a little bit of common sense, right, is what you'd have in terms of a schematic is something like, where's my box tool? There it is. So for example, right, if we were to put a box in this, right, what you really want to see is the accumulation that happens in you, right? The longer time that we go, not so much sideways, but the longer time we play this game, right, the better it is in terms of fueling the tank for a rally on through, right? If we ultimately see this as bullish right now, right, this becomes your value area where all the interest is. If you were to put let's put a fixed range volume on here, right? If you put a fixed range volume on there, right, what you can see, look, right, is you're either coming all the way back down to the low, or you've got this cluster here, right? Which means if we come back down to this kind of level, right, then that gives us a 1-2, right? And our 1-2 move means that we're capped 3, 4, 5, right? And it becomes no different than what we saw in this move, the truncation move, back there, right? We limited in terms of where we can physically go, right? So all I'm asking, guys, is just give this a little bit of common sense, right? Like I said, hoped I could have covered more of this yesterday in the one stream. I've had feedback that obviously it cut out after 18 minutes or so on TradingView. It did seem to work on YouTube, which was a great thing. And obviously, I didn't cover what I wanted to show you in terms of chapter 20 of the book yesterday in this, right? So obviously, this is why I wanted to put this and spend the time to put this back together, right? I genuinely feel where we are right now, right? We've literally gone and we've done a couple of things. And I think this for me is kind of the key, right? I genuinely feel this move up and with what we're seeing with these ETFs, where I think BlackRock are, the fact that BlackRock are definitely not going to be bag carriers for the big players. The institutional line that I've drawn 2.5 years ago, right? All of these things combined, just paint the story, right? And kind of painting this story in terms of where we are, right? It's just not bullish yet, right? And I'm not, like I said, I'm not kind of anti-bullish nature. I'm not wanting Bitcoin not to succeed. I think there's this kind of misconception you're bullish or you're not, right? And if you're not bullish, you're wrong, right? And I think unfortunately I like what I like to see. I like to see confirmation in these kinds of moves, and without anybody coming along with any real logic to support why this is off to 100k, I just can't justify anything beyond its current all-time high at the moment, right? There's nothing painted. There's nothing in its character. There's nothing that has changed since way back when I posted this and had this published in my book, right? We've actually gone out and seen no real change, right? The move up in terms of an ST up to the first sign of strength, right, is literally what let me do the measurement for you before I finish the stream. Where's the actual this one here, right? So from the price movement, right, if this ultimately was our first move, we're talking about a 5k move, grand scheme of things, right? Which at this particular point, it's actually closer to this one because this would have been the first move up there. This would have been the end. So, $4,800, right, on the hype of Bitcoin, right? So, where I talked about 32k, we've rallied to 36. We're talking a 4k move on the fact that someone pushed out that BlackRock had the ETF approved. It's absolutely insane, guys. This is just not sustainable, right? And I think any which way down is the next major play. All right. So I'm going to finish there. Let me just see if there's any questions on TradingView, and I'll leave it like that. Yeah, no worries. Like I said, I done yesterday's stream. Actually, I'd have to go back to the. I think you go to live streams or even come into my profile. I'll put it in the chat now when I finish this, right, rather than going off the screen. I'll put in yesterday's stream just to kind of fill in the gaps from today's stream that I was hoping to do on yesterday's stream and didn't. Okay, so brilliant. All right. Well, thanks, guys. Thanks for watching. If there's no questions, I'm going to give it a couple of seconds just to see if there's any questions. If there's no questions, obviously enjoy your week, and hopefully I'm not going to be doing a stream for a couple of days now. I think I've put out a little bit yesterday and today. So, yeah, that's exactly the point. In terms of just taming your emotions, I think the point is, right, as I just said a couple of minutes ago, the reality is a lot of people in this space, they assume that if you're not bullish, you're wrong, right? And I've been in this game far too long to actually give a shit. But in the grand scheme of things, what I've also seen is this transition from, kind of a play thing in terms of when I first got involved in Bitcoin, it took me about 3 weeks to actually go and try to figure out how to set up a wallet, right? It was, kind of way back when. This was way before KYC and all the anti-money laundering kind of regs come in and so on and so on. You could literally set it up with an email. But, I remember these times, right? And I think the main thing for me with kind of a trader's hat on rather than investor's hat is that markets move up and down, right? And I think for me, grand scheme of things, if you're bullish now, good luck. As long as you're willing to hold for the long run. I think in the shorter time frame, we're going to need to come down one way, shape, or form for a much larger accumulation, right? My biggest fear overall is that we grind up, and if we carry on grinding up here, all the way to 65k, all it means is that the schematic is much, much bigger than I've realized. And it means that for the next 2 to 3 years, we spend time again under the 65k, right? So this isn't going to make a bunch of retail traders rich. And as long as you understand that and appreciate that, then emotions are in check. As I've said time and time again, my main markets these days are the forex markets. I don't trade much in terms of crypto. I had a cracking run 2017 in the altcoins. I've been in Bitcoin since 2011. And in the grand scheme of things, guys, this is more about, just education. This is more about getting, the kind of the masses to see some common sense. All right. So I'm going to finish there. Again, thanks for watching, guys. And I'll see you on next stream. Cheers.